when you're vulnerable, a lot of times you'll settle for anything.
Yeah.
You'll settle for anything if it just fills even temporarily of that void that you might be feeling where you want companionship or you want someone there, and you'll choose someone out of loneliness. So that is also the worst time to choose somebody when you're feeling lonely, you're feeling abandoned, you're feeling traumatized, you're feeling hurt, you haven't healed from your past traumas, childhood traumas, whatever that might be for you. But that's the worst time to go seeking for love because you're not going to find love. I promise you that. You can find lust. You're gonna find other traumatized people, other people that haven't healed from their trauma, from their problems, or anything like that. So, worst time to do that. I knew in my heart he was not my husband, and I
Mm.
was not supposed to marry him. But I was in a season of hurt and just bitterness. And when you have hurt and bitterness in your heart, which is not a great time to look for a person, well, you will operate in the spirit of rebellion. They have not done the work. Maybe a lot of them just stayed single for a while and then they're like, I'm about to go out here and start dating, and they still struggle with these issues. But what have you done in that timing?
Yeah.
Just because you stayed single so long doesn't mean you did the work.
That's right. Because what they say, uh time time doesn't heal all wounds. It's what you do with that time that heals all wounds. What's up, Brave Hearts community? This is Sean Heineman, your premier pre-engagement coach, back with another segment of It's Scary to Remarry, inspiring you to love fearlessly. We have a special guest with us today. Today's guest is a minister, leader, mentor, and a teacher. She also has a YouTube channel, Christian Girl, where she boldly shares her faith as a believer. Love that as well. Let's show some love to LaRoya Alexander. How are you doing this evening?
I'm well. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate this opportunity to be on your platform, just to share just, values of, marriage. I'm a divorcee. I've been divorced for over 6.5 years now, so probably going on 7. So I've had my share, but I would love to be married again, but I'm just waiting in God's timing right now. I'm not rushing nothing. So yeah, I appreciate you for letting me share and just share my wisdom that I've learned from it and just my journey with the world, and just letting them know like, hey, like, you can start over and it's not over after divorce as well. So you just want to build from there. But yeah, but I don't want to jump all ahead. So
No, it's all good. It's gonna be a good conversation. Which why I created this platform was for people to share their experiences and their vulnerability, because I think we need more of that. I think that's almost like a lost art today, where people are being vulnerable and open, and can walk in their, in their truth and their boldness, and just knowing that, yeah, I've been through a divorce. So what? Okay, I learned, you know, and you never take a loss. It's just a lesson. So,
absolutely.
so I wanted to ask you, what do you think are some of the most common reasons people rush into marriage?
Oh, some of the most common reasons I would say, because I rushed into mine probably over 7 years ago. I rushed into mine. I would say some of the common things would be just lack of knowledge,
Mm.
um, us wanting to rush because we're trying to fill a void or feel like, hey, I want to be married, or I really love this person, or I really just want to be married. Some people fall in love with the idea of marriage and not the actual act of marriage and the commitment and covenant and what it takes to actually build that marriage. So I just think people have a certain perspective of what marriage is supposed to be in their own minds and what they see probably on social media, TV, these reality shows. So marriage is really blown out of perspective, with how people really look at it. And I just believe that people have forgotten the true meaning of marriage and just the foundation of marriage and where it comes from. God created marriage. God created that union. God created that covenant. And just speaking on that topic, God's relationship with the church. That is the first example of covenant and foundation of marriage. And when man is married and cleaves to his wife, that relationship, that covenant, that bond, that union between man and woman is supposed to mirror God's relationship with the church. So I just believe that when people rush into it, they just lack the knowledge and the wisdom, and they don't really know what they're getting themselves into. Hence myself. I didn't learn a lot more about marriage until after the divorce, which is why, I'm not afraid to get married again, but I do understand how much time it's taking because it's been almost 7 years. But I understand you need to be prepared for this. It's a covenant, it's a decision, it's an intentional decision that you're choosing to make to be with a partner. And I just feel that we don't take those thoughts into consideration prior to saying I do. That's why we so haphazardly hop into marriages and haphazardly hop out of marriages because we really don't understand the purpose of marriage and the foundation of marriage.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I heard a pastor say, or I think it was Dr. Miles Monroe. I think he said people would stay married more if those same people that was at your wedding, like you going through a divorce, those same people should be at the divorce and make you think twice.
So the witnesses.
Yeah, right. I thought that was funny, but of course, you talked about being married. So looking back, well, can you tell us a little bit about your story and getting married and going through a divorce? Can you share a little bit of that with us?
Yeah, so I think I was like 25, 26 or so. I
I
met the
was 24.
person. Oh, see, it happens.
Welcome to the club.
I was in the church. He was outside the church, so go figure, happens to a lot of us young ladies. And a lot of times, we get into situations where we feel we can change the person or the person will grow with us as, we gradually go through our union or our marriage. But marrying this person, I had to do a lot of reflecting and think about like really where was I at mentally and emotionally and spiritually in that time frame compared to now, which is why like I can talk about it so vulnerably and openly because I'm healed from it. My past doesn't control me of where I'm at in the present. So just thinking about it, I'm just like, man, like I was very lonely. I felt abandoned. I lost a couple of good friends, good best friends back then. Just our relationship just departed from each other. And I didn't really have a lot of family out here. I'm out here in Cali. What's up to Cali? And a lot of my family's in Washington. And it's just like I just felt very alone. So when a person feels very alone, they can feel very vulnerable. They can feel very vulnerable. So, and I can't speak for men, but I'm pretty sure men can feel in these ways too. But for women and as a woman, when you're vulnerable, a lot of times you'll settle for anything.
Yeah.
You'll settle for anything if it just feels even temporarily of that void that you might be feeling where you want companionship or you want someone there and you'll choose someone out of loneliness. So that is also the worst time to choose somebody when you're feeling lonely, you're feeling abandoned, you're feeling traumatized, you're feeling hurt, you haven't healed from your past traumas, childhood traumas, whatever that might be for you. But that's the worst time to go seeking for love because you're not going to find love. I promise you that. You can find lust. You're going to find other traumatized people, other people that haven't healed from their trauma, from their problems or anything like that. So worst time to do that.
Yeah.
But met this gentleman outside of church. Nothing bad to say about him. 'Cause like I said, it was a great guy, but I had to understand where I met him at. Even though I can identify emotionally where I was, but back then I could not identify with where he was because it was just about me. It was about me. So when I chose to be with him, it was really fast. We started dating, we started, having sex with each other, and we started living together. So, and to be honest, I always tell people like my first love literally was Jesus, and that's not a cliche.
Mm,
He was my first love. Like I've never been in love with a man before. I've been in relationships with men, but it was always lust. It was always for competition. It was always just, for the fun of it and just the toxicity of it. It
mm,
was never for real love. And you got to ask yourself, and I had to ask myself, if you never really knew Jesus like that, and Jesus is love, did you really give love? Did you really you gave love from from a place where you understood it to be, but that doesn't mean it was real love. It didn't mean it was real genuine love that Jesus can give. So
mm,
that's why I can comfortably say that I was never really in love with any man, and not even the man that I got married to.
mhm, mhm.
So I married him and he married me, and it felt rushed, it felt forced. A lot of the forcing, I believe, came from my behalf.
Mm, mm,
Came from my behalf. And honestly, and people might be like, well, why'd you marry him if you didn't love him? I married him because I didn't want to be in sin. I didn't want to be in sin. But staying on that topic, years later, I finally got a conclusion and a revelation from God on that because I'm currently writing my book right now. I'm not gonna release the name, but when we get there, I'll shoot it to you.
yeah.
Um, the
Say,
Lord reminded me, like, just because you get married to the sin, it's not gonna save you from it.
mm,
It's not going to save you from it. And to be honest, when I got married to the sin, not talking about the person,
right,
just the circumstances, the way in which it happened, the sin got worse.
mm,
It got worse. The sin turned from me focusing on, oh, I just don't want to have sex outside of marriage and all this stuff. But we already living together. We're already arguing. We're already fighting. We're already bumping heads. We're already not on the same page. He's not a believer. I'm believing. I'm trying to get him to go to church. Like brushing all that to the side and just worried about, oh, I don't want to be in sin because of sex. But all these other issues, I was blinded. So got married to the sin, which I put myself in bondage to the sin. Now all this other stuff was birthed out of that. And it just turned to a full blown, just like I was living in my own hell. And the thing is, I couldn't even be mad at him, even though I had so much anger in my marriage. It wasn't towards him, it was towards myself. Because I'm like, how could I get myself into this situation? How did I get here? And I was so angry with myself, couldn't forgive myself. I wanted to please God. I was struggling in my relationship with God now because I was in so much bondage and turmoil. And I took it out on him. And with him, he struggled with a lot of things too, sexually, all that stuff, addictions in that area. And, he was struggling with a lot of depression and all that. And he didn't have an outlet for that, So he had his own stuff that he was fighting.
yeah.
And I had my own stuff that I was fighting, and we was just, going at it. And when we divorced, it was a mutual agreement. It ended badly, but we had a mutual agreement. And when I say badly, I don't mean like fist fighting. We was this. I just mean both parties were torn even more than what we were before we came into this agreement,
Mm,
and we were both hurt.
mm, mm,
I remember probably like a year after we got divorced, me and him had a conversation, and he was talking about he was terrified to get married again, and he was never going to get married again. And
wow.
I'm on the other hand, like, oh, I'm over here healing, like I can't wait to get married because I want to heal. But I understand he's in a different space, in a different space. So, people suffer different kind of ways and take what they take from their pain or their experience of what they go through. So people deal with pain differently. So with that being said, that's just kind of backstory on my marriage and then going through the divorce. But one place in that divorce that I want to highlight is after the separation and the process of divorce started, that's when I started going through all of my darkness. Like that was the darkest part of my life was that separation. Not my separation from him.
Mm,
It was me feeling like I was separated from God for so long and I'm having to come back to him. And that process of reconciliation that I felt, even though, it's just as easy as we can say, Lord, forgive me, I repent, I come back to you.
mm,
There was still a process. Like I felt like I was like, when a drug addict stops doing their drugs and
mm,
they go through that rehabilitation process and relapse and then going through just thinking and their mind is just thinking 10 million different things at a time. It felt like that. I felt like I was having withdrawals, like I was going through it. I had my first panic attack. I ain't never had a history of panic attacks. It was bad,
yeah.
but the Lord restored me. The Lord restored me. And I remember when I gave my marriage to the Lord because the Lord asked me for it.
Mm,
He asked me for it because he called me to peace and he asked me for it. He said, give me the marriage because that was an idol for me. And
wow.
for me, a part of me thinking, well, Lord, and it was a part of me where I was like, Lord, I'm gonna go back and try to make it work, and I'll be as miserable with him. I don't care. I just don't want to make you mad at me. I don't want to make you look down on me because I got a divorce. I don't want to upset you. I don't want to disobey you. I've already disobeyed you further. I don't want to be in this area.
Mhm.
And the enemy talking to me, or you're just gonna be, an adulteress if you do this, if you and it was just woo, tug of war. The
Mhm.
little angel and the devil on the side, it was a tug of war.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Uh,
yeah, very dark time, but the Lord restored me. And when I gave him my marriage, he promised me that you will never want for anything ever again. And he has kept his promise. He has kept his promise and he has restored me tenfold, probably more than that, more than I can ask for. And, I pray for my ex that I was married to, and I pray and I hope he comes to the Lord and all of that. Don't wish nothing on him. But when you divorce someone, the best thing to do besides resubmitting yourself back to the Lord, if you weren't in the first place,
mhm.
resubmit it, is just reflect on what you could have done differently. What happened? Go to the root of the issue, go to the anchor of the issue. How did you get here? It wasn't his fault because a lot of people like to blame their spouse. He did this, but he's the reason why I react this way. Like, no, like, what is the reason you lack self control? What is the reason that you have anger? What is the reason why you respond in such anger and yelling and frustration and irritation? Why
Mhm.
do you have thoughts of just rage? That is the issues that God wants to deal with. And if you're still in the same situation now, this is not telling people get divorced to fix your problems. Like, no, like you let the Lord lead you. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I know the Lord told me, give it to me. And
Mhm.
I gave it to him and I felt it lift off my shoulders the moment and when I agreed with him.
Mhm.
So I would just say like just some backstory,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
some backstory on it. Really dark place, but I've learned so much from it and I'm in so much peace.
Hmm.
And I love marriage. I love the idea. I love the act. I love the concept. I love the foundation. I
Yeah.
love everything about marriage. I love the good and the bad that's going to come with it. But
Yeah.
the struggle, like the trials, like I adore it. I truly adore it.
Yeah. I hear you. And as I hear you talking, I was going to ask you, what are you looking back? What do you feel like there were two areas that you needed to work on
Um,
looking back? Because I
looking,
know for me, I know I struggle with like emotional immaturity. I know I struggle with that and stonewalling. Like I was bad, like communication
mm-hmm.
all messed up. Yeah. Those are just two that I know that I can pinpoint. I'm sure if I brought my ex-wife on here, she probably could tell you some other stuff. I don't know, but but anyway, what do you feel like
Um,
things that you might have struggled with in that time?
Two things. The first one I would say, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I can elaborate more on how I dealt with it, was the emotional immaturity. Just the lack of emotional awareness, just not of the other person, but of myself too, and not aware of how my emotions can shift the atmosphere or my emotions can make the other person feel. Like I had zero attention and awareness in that area.
Yeah.
So zero intelligence in that area. And just know when the Lord fills you with the Holy Spirit and you're serving the Lord, He will give you a lot of emotional intelligence, but we call it discernment. We call it discernment. So I lacked a lot of discernment when it came to being in this marriage. And I'd say the second one was self-control. Mine was self-control. And, self-control can be a broad thing
Yeah.
around, just, how you respond, how you carry yourself, how you hold back a little bit, how you bite your tongue, how you slow to speak, slow to get angry or anything like that. But self-control was non-existent. It was however it was going to come up and come out, it was going to be unfiltered. You got it how I gave it. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
So, uh, woo, I can thank God for all the self-control that He's given me now over the years and just emotional awareness and intelligence and being slow to speak on things. And because the Lord wants us to be slow to speak when we're in, like, say you're with your spouse and you're in a conversation, You are slow to speak because the Lord wants you to listen first. He
Mhm.
wants you to receive the information that the other person is saying to you and not take it in offense,
Mhm.
but receive the information and then process it,
Yeah.
then respond. So if you're slow to speak, you have time to do those things
Yeah.
without getting angry. And God says, don't like be slow to get
Mhm.
angry because he knows we jump to conclusions.
Yes.
He knows we are quick to get offended and we're quick to respond and react to our emotions and how we feel. And just knowing that in a marriage, and it doesn't even matter, a marriage, a friendship, or companion, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
coworkers, you
Yeah.
have to learn if you have to learn to master your feelings and emotions. Because if you live by your feelings and emotions, it's no different than living by your flesh. And I always tell people, walk by faith, not feelings and emotions. When you walk by faith, that means you're walking by the knowledge of the spirit versus the knowledge of your flesh. Because
Mhm.
your flesh and your feelings, emotions, they are like this.
Yep.
They go hand in hand,
Yep.
So when you feel something, you react. When your
Mhm.
emotions feel a certain way from something that happened years ago, you react or you hold on to things or you hold on to unforgiveness. So that's why it's a dangerous place, especially in a marriage, when you're walking in your flesh, in your feelings and emotions, and letting your emotions and feelings dictate how you'll treat that person or how you'll respond to that person. So very dangerous place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely I was not walking in the spirit. Even though I had come to Christ before I met him, it was like one
Mhm.
foot in, one foot out, but I'm gonna handle him how I want to handle him.
Mhm.
So, and remember when you're dealing with your spouse, you're to love them how God loves them,
Yep.
not how you think you should love them. You love them how God loves them. And that's where, I think we all get a little mixed up because if I feel some way, I'm going to treat you according to that. And
Yep.
that's not the godly way. That's not the loving thy neighbor as you love yourself, if you love yourself at all.
Yeah, right. And that's a great question, right?
Right.
That's a great question because some people anyway, that's another show. But I love when you talk about the emotions part. There was a quote that I read that said, emotions make wonderful servants, but terrible masters.
Woo.
And and that's something that can destroy a relationship, just
Right.
being emotionally just unregulated.
Right.
And like you said, you just gonna give it to them how you feel, you know.
Unfiltered.
But yeah, but those words you can't take them back,
Right.
And then we wonder why, you're frustrated with your spouse or whatever and stuff like they still have those words. That's not saying that you should hold on to it, but words do hurt.
They do. They hurt more than the physical.
Hmm. Yeah.
Women know that because we can cut you like butter with our mouths.
Mhm. You can think about something negative that someone said to you in the third grade, right?
Hmm.
Something, so those words they hurt and they help they can tear down our self-esteem, and the way
Hmm.
we feel about ourselves, especially from people that we admire and we respect. Um, those words, you just got to be careful. I try to be mindful and not to live in my feelings. But the feelings are real, you know.
And they're real, and God knows. God never like discounts your feelings. He knows you have he made us with emotions and feelings, right? But he wants us to control them. Like the purpose of feelings and emotions is just to feel, is to know that you are you. To know that you are a human being, to know that you have emotions, to know that hey, I'm not just spirit or I'm not just flesh,
Yeah.
but I am somebody that feels a certain way, that I can articulate how I feel about something. Or when I teach like wisdom, it takes me to go through things spiritually, physically, and emotionally and feel things to get wisdom to know like how would I know what wisdom is if I don't know like who I am or how I feel about things or how I reacted to things. Like feelings and emotions are just they're just triggers.
Yep.
They're just triggers to let you know like hey, fight or flight, or hey, you don't feel good, or hey, why am I feeling this way when this person says that to me? it's just alarms letting you know like, hey, I'm feeling some kind of way. Or when you feel offense, how do you respond to that? But you need to feel it first in order to choose mentally and spiritually how to respond to it. So there's a purpose for feelings and emotions, but we take those feelings and emotions and we can use them as, resources of manipulation at times. We can use our
Mm,
feeling and emotions to manipulate other people, to, I hate that word narcissist. Oh, I
uh,
wish they would get rid of it out of the
yeah,
dictionary.
yeah, please, yeah, because
But
anyway,
they're just alarms to let you know, like, hey, something's going on. Something's being felt here. How do we respond to it?
yeah, for sure. And at what point did you know that you were healing from your marriage? Like what was there anything in particular that just made you feel like I'm actually over this now? Like what was that like? Like how did you know? Was it like were you journaling and you were like I'm healed, or was it the point that you forgave him? Like how did you know that you were healing from the marriage, from the divorce?
I knew I was healing from it when I started to adore it again and have a different perspective. Because, like I said, when you're healing is when you can step back from the situation and really look at the forest from the trees and be like, oh, this is really what happened. This is what happened over here. This is how I responded over here. Oh, this is how this happened. Like I said in the beginning, my whole anchor was loneliness and feeling abandoned by my friends or family. So the first person that stepped into that room with me, and I wasn't acknowledging that God was there with me because I was still a babe in Christ at that time. So I didn't understand that full-blown relationship between me and God. So I tried to find that in a person. So the first person, I cast my reel, and the first person that bit on that bait,
Mhm.
I didn't know they were going to be the casualty of the Warriors War. I didn't know that. But at the same time, I was looking for something to get fulfilled.
Yeah.
And whatever bit on that bait, that's the person, that obviously, I chose. And like I chose, and I put emphasis on chose because a lot of us don't take accountability for putting ourselves in situations that we knew we weren't supposed to be in, and we chose intentionally those situations out of our trauma, out of our hurt. And a lot of times we blame God. When we don't want to take accountability, we blame God.
Yep.
Oh, why this person hurt me? God, why I go through this? Why this person cheated on me? Why this person we had a baby, but this and this and this and this. But I hear all that, but I'm just like, when people be like, but he did it, I'm like, wait a minute, let's go back to the beginning.
Yep.
What were the signs in the beginning? Because I know for a fact, and I'm not even putting dubs on it.
Mm,
God told me over 100 times, no.
mm,
No, you're not marrying him. No, no. And I was like, well, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And
mm,
I had a friend that I was talking to, and she had gone through stuff in her marriage, so I was confiding in her. But
mm.
a lot of times, there you have to pick and choose certain people to confide in.
Yeah.
And like I said, no, no, no shame to her. Like I love her. Like she was there, at a time where I needed somebody to talk to.
Mhm.
But, if you want to talk to someone that has a full, like, what do you call it? Like,
Uh,
uh,
like
sorry about that.
a
Success.
spectrum, like
A
a yeah.
successful marriage
Mm,
that both parties are keeping God at the foundation, and you want that. But one thing I wish, I wish that I could have been told, nah, girl, you crazy. No, girl, don't do it.
yeah.
Don't do it. Don't marry that man. That's not your husband. But, a lot of people who are hurting and in their situations, they seek out other people that might be hurting in their situations. And we all are just, feeding off of each other. And it's just
Yep.
a cycle. But I knew in my heart he was not my husband. And I
Mm,
was not supposed to marry him. But I was in a season of hurt and just bitterness. And when you have hurt and bitterness in your heart, which is not a great time to look for a person,
mhm.
well, you will operate in the spirit of rebellion.
Yes.
So you're
And
gonna rebel.
yes, and I've heard a couple of people told me that they knew that they were marrying the wrong person.
Hmm.
Like that's got to be tough. I know, and I tell people this too that and I catch a lot of heat for it, but I'm just being honest. I think a lot of times we do pick people out of loneliness, but we also do it because of our own lack of self-confidence
Hmm.
or our own self-esteem. Like
Hmm.
no shade to my exes. Lord knows if any of my exes are watching. But a lot of people that I chose, looking back, was based on my lack of self-esteem.
Yes, that will play a big role. And I can be woman enough to admit that there was a lot of manipulation there from my part.
Mhm.
Yeah, there may have been some on his end, but I'm talking about me
Mhm.
because I can't change him.
Right.
But there was a lot of manipulation on my part and playing off, like I said earlier, with feelings and emotions, knowing that this person, they're depressed, they're going through what they're going through. So you know that, hey, like you have a one up in a way. And not that I intentionally wanted to do that, but stepping back and looking at like what spirit I was operating under or what was controlling me or what kind of decisions I was making.
Hmm.
This person that I chose was nowhere in shape, spiritually, mentally, and physically to be in nobody's marriage, nor was I. But I know for a fact he was not husband material, not at that time. I don't know if he is now, but at that time, he was nowhere near husband material. But at the same time, I said, because of my lack of knowledge as well, and not really knowing about marriage, I didn't know what to look for. So if I don't know what to look for and what's in the word and what the word teaches, which I did not know back then, if I don't know what to look for, then I'm gonna look for something out of my flesh because I'm not walking by spirit and letting the spirit teach me of what kind of man to look for. I'm gonna automatically by default
Yep.
go to what my flesh is telling me. And my flesh is telling me you are hurt, you feel abandoned, you need somebody to embrace. You
Hmm.
need somebody to embrace you, no matter if they're broken, toe up, heart is dark. It don't matter. As long as they can physically embrace you, it's okay.
Oh my
But
God.
your flesh will lead you into areas in life that have your mind thinking like, how did I get here? But you
That's
gotta go back to the source. It's not either person, it's you. You have to go back to the source. Because, like I said, you will date and marry out of wherever you're at in life, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. And if you go pick a broken person, 10 times out of 10, you broken too.
yeah,
You're broke,
that's
you're
right.
broken too, and you
Yeah.
can't fix nobody. That's God's job. You can't do
Hmm.
God's job. So
Hmm.
I know people say you are who you attract. I believe that's true in a lot of sense, of who you attract. But when you become healed, I do attract a lot of men that need healing.
Hmm.
But I feel it depends on the season. It just depends.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I
yeah.
agree. There's if you have any questions for our guests, make sure you leave the questions in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. I want to switch gears just a little bit because
Okay.
this is yeah, we can really work that aisle. I mean, that's
Mhm.
going through a divorce, that's a lot. But however, my wife and I, we created the Love Fearlessly Intimacy Card Deck. So with the
Ooh.
Love Fearlessly Intimacy Card Deck is you can be married, you can be dating, you can be in a relationship. So there's a 30 card set and there's a lot of questions that you can ask that you can find out a lot about a person. If I would have asked some of these questions before I got married, I probably wouldn't have married the first time around if I had these questions. So, Leroya, I want to pull a card from the deck and
Okay.
I want you to answer it.
All right.
Okay. Uh, yeah. Okay. So here's the question. How did you gain your financial insights from parents or through hands-on experience?
Hands on. Definitely hands-on experience and still gaining more knowledge just from, I'm 34 now, so I'm still learning, financial responsibility and just different things about finances, budgeting, things you don't think about in your 20s, and if you're not being told about it, like one thing I wish my family would have told me about, but their family probably didn't tell them about it, was when I got my first job out of high school
Mhm.
and I had it all throughout college. I did not know about a 401k.
Mhm.
And you don't know when you get your first job, you don't even know how long you're going to be at that job.
Right.
And I was there over 10 years.
Mm. So your
And
first job was 10 years?
yeah, about 10 years.
Really?
Yeah, about 10 years. And I didn't start the 401k until 8 years in. Lord have mercy, help.
But if you didn't know, you know,
Right. I mean, I never do a woulda, shoulda, coulda, but um at the end of the day, like I wish like we would talk more about finances when we're younger and our parents would, put us up on game.
yeah,
But hands-on
yeah,
experience.
yeah, for sure. I had a guest on last week. Her name is Millennial in Debt. Shout out to Melissa. She's the uh Beyonce of personal finance. Great person. And we're talking about finances, and it's so important that you discuss those questions like in this dating stage, how you view money, how you see money. Are you a spender? Are you a saver? I did a whole series on I'm ready to be a husband and wife series. And that was one of the questions I asked. Are you a saver or a spender? You know, and a lot of times people, I'm a saver, that whole thing. But you could usually just probably check somebody's budget or you can look at the bank statements and tell uh, if somebody's a spender, a spender or a saver. You could tell what people value by looking
Right.
at the bank statements. But I do wish
I'm three things. I'm a saver, spender, and a giver.
that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing, Laura. And one of the reasons, and I tell people this a lot of times, that one of the reasons I did marry my wife was because she was a tither.
Hmm.
That wasn't the main reason. She was fine, but that was like a plus. I was like, this is good because you know how many people fight over giving a tenth to God who are believers?
A lot of people. A lot of people can't let it go. They
Yeah,
hold on to it that very last.
yeah. So I heard Pastor Andy Stanley say this one time. He says, giving help breaks greed off your life. It helps you to remember that everything isn't about you.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I thought that was good. But anyway, that's the question. Go to scaredtoremarry.com if you want to pick that up. Was it for a Christmas gift, for a friend? You never know. Somebody might be dating. Go grab a copy. What advice would you give to someone who's currently engaged and questioning whether their partner's intentions for marriage align with their own?
Advice that I would give is first, even for both parties,
Yeah.
is put clarity on what is the foundation of the marriage. And I know people, it's a cliche, but I don't call it a cliche, but people say, be equally yoked.
Mhm, mhm.
But what does that mean? What does that embody? So God is just not talking about, I'm a believer, he's a believer.
Yeah.
No, he wants to be equally yoked, like your question about or your statement about the tithing.
Mhm. Yeah.
He wants you to be equally yoked spiritually, physically, mentally. Like you guys don't have to be identical twins, but you guys have to have similar values, and know what your purpose is. Know what your purpose is and what you want to do and what your gifts are, what God has called you to do. I would always, I know you said for a person that's engaged, but prior to getting engaged,
Either or. Yeah.
know who you are, know your identity, know what you bring to the table as far as the kingdom, not to the man's table. I'm saying, what do you bring to God's table? Because once you guys become in union with each other, you have to ask yourself, what is it about our union and our covenant that brings the kingdom glory, that brings God glory? Marriage is bigger than just companionship, my boo thing, wedding pictures and matching pajamas on holidays. It's bigger than that. Yeah, it's cute because the Lord says, like how the Lord says with the kingdom, put everything with the kingdom first and everything will be added. So that means you will get all the joy, the love, the favor, the gifts, the harvest, everything once you put the kingdom first. You will get the joys out of life that you desire.
Yeah.
Same thing with marriage. And like I said in the beginning, marriage is an image of God's covenant with the church.
Mhm, mhm.
So you have to put the marriage as priority up here, but know that God is the head over the marriage. But knowing that when you prioritize the marriage and serving it,
Mhm.
everything else will follow. So for someone that, either look, not say they're looking for red flags, but what advice I can give once they get engaged,
Mhm.
just make sure you both are in it for the right reasons. And I think the most important reason outside of just making God the foundation, the
Mhm.
most important reason is because you are ready to serve. If you are not ready to serve, you are not ready to be in commitment. You're not ready to be in covenant. You're not ready to say, I do. You're not ready to lay your life down. You're not ready
Mhm.
because that's all marriage is. It's just serving one another. And if you both have the same mindset and values of serving one another, neither one of you will run dry when it comes to that cycle of marriage going through seasons. You guys will go through it together. It won't feel like a desert because you know how some people can say, I'm married, but I feel alone.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's because something's broken there. The cycle ain't running.
Yep.
A lot of times what people don't understand is when there's conflict and or hell or whatever, disagreements, arguing, fighting, all this stuff breaking loose within the covenant of your marriage, I guarantee you 10 times out of 10, sin has entered some type of way. And I'm not talking about your normal sin, adultery, porn addiction, whatever, all the stuff that we blow out of proportion that people deal with. And I'm not saying blow out of proportion, but it's the biggest thing.
100%. Yeah.
But the little things like lying, or the little things like selfishness, greed, not taking other people's feelings into consideration, not loving your neighbor as you love yourself, and your neighbor is your spouse.
Yep.
So it's the little things that people don't understand, the little sins that fester and turn into big sins. And then it gets to adultery.
Yep.
Then it
Yep.
gets to all that. But where did it start? Maybe the lust of the eyes. Maybe he's
Mhm.
feeling lonely. Maybe he's going to work and somebody bringing him sandwiches. I don't know. Too many coffee dates. Something's lacking, which is why you have to have the spirit of discernment when it comes to who you're dealing with. And you guys must have that together. And like I said earlier, what comes with spiritual discernment, emotional intelligence. You should be tapped in to know that your partner is off.
Yep.
Something's off. You should know. And if you don't know, it's because your mind's over here all wrapped up in something else.
Yep. And
And
that's one
people,
thing.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was about to say because that's one thing I wanted to talk about too, because making sure that you're tapped in with your spouse. I love that you said that because a lot of times we think that once we marry, we can put our marriage on autopilot and we just gonna coast on 80 miles an hour and we good. But marriage is more than that, and that's something that I learned from my first marriage when I was going through my divorce, is that I wasn't tapped in. We weren't in sync.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you can be married and y'all growing, either y'all growing together or you're growing apart.
Right.
But it's so silent because you're with each other every day. You could just be drifting apart. It's just this slow drift. The next thing you know, you all the way out. It's like when boats, when they aren't tied to
Yeah,
their,
they float me all
yeah, it's just a slow drift. The next thing you know, and so when people say that we grew apart, and I would tell people that with my ex-wife, I'm like, we grew apart, and that's because we weren't tapped in. We were more concerned about so many other facets of life that we weren't connected, if that
right.
makes
Because if
sense.
you grow apart, you let it happen.
Yep.
You know when you're getting distant from someone, you feel it. Like I said, feelings and emotions are alarms. They let you know like how you're feeling, why are you feeling, why are you thinking these thoughts? And it's really big to pray with your partner. Pray with your partner. Keep God at the center. And I promise you that God will always give you revelation in your marriage, either to most likely the husband first, but also the wife too.
Of course.
But, and I use that example why you guys should always stay tapped in because to this day, I don't understand. And some people might be like, well, you've never been in that situation before. But how people drift and they're not tapped in with each other mentally, spiritually, emotionally is say for example you have a wife and then you have the husband and the husband's been unfaithful, he's been cheating for over 2 years and he has a whole family in a whole nother state. How do you not know this? how do you not know? And I know some people be like, well, men, I'm like, no way. Cause like even and I can contest to this twice in dating situations where I was faithful to the Lord and I was being abstinent with the person, but we were dating.
Mhm.
And one person in particular, I told him because he was doing something, and like
Mhm.
I have a lot of discernment. Women we smart,
That's right.
but the discernment comes from the Lord. So I'm just like, if you're doing something, you better stop because the Lord is going to expose you.
Mhm.
Because the Lord is not going to let his faithful daughter or faithful son be led astray and
Mhm.
be lied to and be kept in the dark, especially when they're committed to the Lord and submitted. The Lord is going to shine light because the more submitted you are to the Lord, you become light.
Mhm. That's
So if there's any darkness around you, it's going to get exposed. That's just principle.
Mhm.
Principle. I'm not a psychic. I'm not someone to put roots on you. No,
Yeah.
that's just how principles of how God works when you're submitted to him and you're becoming the light and you're representing him. Any darkness around you is going to get exposed, even the darkness within yourself will get exposed, which is why when you got these pastors going to high platforms, they need to have spiritual integrity, meaning what they do in private, the Lord can see it, but they need to choose to do the right thing. Because as you get closer to the Lord, especially high up on these platforms, the more light is going to be on you. So if there's any darkness within you or anything you're doing, it's going to come out. That saying that they say, what you do in the dark comes to light, that comes from the Lord.
Mhm.
The Lord is the light.
Yeah.
We
Amen.
say a lot of these statements, but we are talking about our God. So just knowing that God is not going to let you be in the dark. And my Lord, your Lord too. I know he ain't gonna let me be in no marriage, being a faithful, God-driven, prayerful wife, and my husband got a whole family, and he been cheating and double dipping for 2 years. Lord have mercy. Come on,
Yeah.
you
It's
can't,
it
you can't, you can't feed me that pill. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's real out here, folks. But again, when you're not tapped in, because the Bible talks about us the small foxes that spoil the vine, and there's another scripture that talks about oh my God, I was about to go somewhere with that. I just totally forgot. Anyway, totally forgot. Okay, so Leroy, as we get ready to come to a close, I want to have a bonus section with you.
All righty.
Okay, so this is Leroy Uncut. Okay,
Right.
all right. So you ready?
Always
Okay. What's the biggest mistake you see men make when it comes to dating?
not letting their pride go, not letting their pride go. And when I say not letting their pride go, it comes from not being healed from certain things they've gone through or different relationships they've been in. Because a lot of times we don't know that pride is the anchor to a lot of the issues that we struggle with, especially
Mhm.
with men. Men are very prideful, a lot of egos. When we look at men and think they're very controlling or these things that they got going on, those all stemmed from somewhere. And who knows that narcissism or controllingness or them feeling insecure or always saying women cheating or doing this or they don't, it came from somewhere. I get it that maybe they've been done wrong, they've been lied to, maybe their mama abandoned them when they was little. I've seen that happen before.
Yeah.
And they turn into this person that, just doesn't mix well with women.
Mhm.
So it's pride that keeps those things there and it doesn't allow them to get healing. So I would say it's a lot of pride but also stemming from men making the mistake of not being healed prior to going into the field of dating. And I'm not saying I'm blaming men a whole totally, but even though your healing is your responsibility,
Yeah.
because a lot of men they have not done the work to get healed.
Mhm.
They have not done the work. Maybe a lot of them just stayed single for a while and then they're like, I'm about to go out here and start dating, and they still struggle with these issues. But what have you done in that timing?
Yeah.
Just because you stayed single so long doesn't mean you did the work.
That's right. Because what they say, uh time time doesn't heal all wounds. It's what you do with that time that heals all wounds. So that's true. Uh
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. My last relationship taught me
My last relationship taught me to be more humble.
Hmm.
Taught me humility
Yeah.
in the worst way.
That's a great trait to have though. You know, humility is a beautiful thing. Thanks, bro. Got my brother-in-law who tapped in with us. Shout out to him. Uh, from seeing your parents' relationship, what did it teach you about relationships?
That relationships can be, it's a lot of work. And when two people ain't supposed to be together, they not supposed to be together. So
Mm,
when you force something, it can cause a lot more damage than just parting ways and saying it's not working.
yeah,
So two unhealed people together does not make a whole pie, does not make, a whole house of healing. It just makes more trauma and more damage. And if you got kids, it can damage them in ways emotionally and spiritually as well. So yeah, so that's from their relationship, call it quits when you gotta call it quits.
understood. Who makes a better spouse? Someone never married or someone divorced?
That's a tricky question.
It's
That's a tricky question. I mean, I'm neutral on that. It just depends. It just depends, on put it this way, it just depends on your relationship with God. I don't care whether you've never been married or divorced. What's the health level of you and God's relationship, and that will determine the health of your marriage.
for sure. Love it. What's harder for you to say? I apologize. I need help. I love you, or I was wrong.
I can say all those things now. And I ain't even lying with you.
Yeah.
But back then, before the healing,
Yeah.
all of those things,
Mm,
all the above.
yeah. That's like, no, I hear you. I hear you. Last question. Is it easier to love yourself or someone else?
It's easier to, okay, for me, but I
Yeah,
know
yeah, for you.
a
Yeah.
lot of people struggle with. I can do both, honestly. Because the Lord says, you love yourself, then you love your neighbor. So I would just say loving yourself is gonna depict how you're gonna love that person.
Mm,
So however you treat people, that shows a lot about how you feel about yourself. So that's a double entendre, with that question,
yeah,
but
for
you
sure.
have to love yourself before you can love anyone else. So
Mm,
I guess the most important thing is loving me.
mhm.
And if I love me, I can love people.
Yeah, for sure. All right, love it. Well, this has been a phenomenal show. Thank you so much, Leroy, for taking some time out of your day to be a guest. I was definitely looking forward to this. Let everyone know how they can get in touch with you. We'll have all your information linked up in the description, but give us all the good information and where we can find you.
Oh, yes. I'm on Instagram under Leroya underscore Alexander.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of people named Leroya. I think there was like two other people on there, but you'll see me on there. My picture's on there. I also have my YouTube channel, Christian Girl. I'm actually doing some revamping, rebranding with it. I want to get it back up and going. I haven't done an episode probably in about a year, but I do post like little reels on there, but I am doing a lot of revamping with my page and whatnot. So just working on a few things, writing my book right now, but I'll release that later once it gets done. But the best place to reach me is on Instagram. I am on Facebook too under the same name, Leroy Alexander. You can reach me there as well, but I'm very active on Instagram and I reply very often. So if you want to reach me there, I am there and I'm there if anybody has questions, if anyone wants to talk or has questions for me about my experiences, or if you want to share your experiences with me as far as, marriage and dating or, engagement. I'm here and I'm all ears and I love that topic. Marriage is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I give you some good advice on it.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Well, Brave Hearts community, you heard it here. Go connect with Leroya, because as you can tell from this show, that she has dropped so many gems. There was a comment. Angelita said, "This is a great platform for people seeking healing and restoration, post-marriage or long-term relationship. I'm a fan and will keep watching. The guests are so transparent. Thank you." So thank you so much for that. Angelia, I believe that's saying your name right. But thanks again for taking some time to be to comment and to be able to watch this episode. Yes, the reason I created this platform is so we can be transparent and share our stories because we're overcome by our testimonies, right? So I think it's important that we share our stories. Through our nakedness, we can clothe someone. You just never know. So if you are watching this via YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend, put this in your group chat because I know it's like 4 or 5 of y'all in the group chat. Take the video, put it in your group chat, watch the video, and then y'all can talk about it in the group chat because you never know who this can help. If you are listening to this via podcast, make sure that you leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. By doing so, it puts you in a drawing for a free Amazon gift card. Who doesn't like free stuff? This
Definitely.
is Sean Heineman with special guests.
All right, Laura Alexander. See y'all later.
All right, Brave Hearts community, take care.